Finding the things about your child that you really like about them. We know you love your child, but what do you like about your child? Do you like how funny he is and how he makes these little jokes? Do you like how creative he is when he's building with his Legos? Do you like how kind he is when he gives you a hug? Find those things that he does that you like about him and use that to build a new connection with him, because then you're going to be able to empathize with him better when he is having those hard moments.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Jessica, and this is All Things Sensory by Harkla.
We are both certified occupational therapy assistants, and together with Harkla, we are on a mission to empower parents, therapists, and educators to help raise confident and strong children of all abilities.
On this podcast, we chat about all things sensory, diving into special needs, occupational therapy, parenting, self-care, overall health and wellness, and so much more.
We are here to provide raw, honest, and fun strategies, ideas, and information for parents, therapists, and educators, as well as other professionals to implement into daily life.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey there, welcome to All Things Sensory by Harkla. We are thrilled to have you here today. I apologize for my lovely voice, but it is the fall, which means new germs are in session. So here we are.
We are going to answer a listener question today. If you didn't know, we do have a form in the show notes that you can fill out if you want us to answer your question on the podcast. So with that, I will read the question.
It's a long question, so a little paraphrasing would be nice.
Okay, I'll try. All right. My son is 5. He does not have an official diagnosis, but we're on the waiting list for an OT. Our old OT that we saw agreed with SPD and possibly ADHD. My struggle is that he's a sensory avoider. However, he avoids by trying to become louder or more chaotic than he feels. To someone with not a lot of experience, it looks like sensory seeking, but it's not. He's easily overstimulated and then deals with it by losing his absolute marbles. I love that.
Yeah.
Any attempt to calm him or remove him from the situation makes it worse because he knows we're trying to help him calm, and his brain perceives that as a threat. I've spent years trying to figure him out, and I'm so defeated. No strategies I've been given or have read in countless books have worked for us. I'm so incredibly lost with how to support him. To add to the situation, I too have SPD and am heavily avoidant. His behaviors trigger all of my worst qualities.
I feel this on a lot of levels.
Yeah.
Honestly. First of all, I just want to validate and say how difficult it is to parent a child, a neurodivergent child, a child with sensory needs, when you're dealing with your own, especially if those sensory needs are opposite. We actually do have a separate podcast episode on that specific topic, when your sensory needs mismatch. So that might be a helpful one to listen to. You probably already have the information that you need on that, but I just wanted to say that, first of all, we see you, we hear you, you're doing the best that you can, and we're gonna give you some additional tips that hopefully will help.
Hopefully, yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. To me, it sounds a lot like a retained moro reflex.
Yeah. I am curious if she's ever had his primitive reflexes tested. Both of theirs.
5. He's 5 years old, so most likely not.
Yeah.
But yeah, as well, for the parent, looking at the moro reflex would be my first go-to.
Yeah.
We have, I think, maybe the free primitive reflex webinar that we have would be a good place to start, where we talk about the different retained or the different primitive reflexes, what it can look like if certain reflexes are retained. We give some strategies and some tips to get started. So that would be a good place to start. Also, for the parent listening, I just finished a really great book called Building a Non-Anxious Life by John Deloney. That, I think, is a game changer for any parents who are struggling.
I will also add to that another highly sensitive parenting book that's not an actually parenting book, but it's called Too Loud, Too Bright, Too Fast, Too Tight.
I think that was it.
Something like that.
That sounded right.
Thank you. It's always a questionable
Someone will correct us if we're wrong.
But we'll put these links in the show notes too. These are books you want to check out. But this book specifically that I'm talking about is for adults with sensory needs, and it walks you through an individual's life who was working through a lot of sensitivities as well. And it's just like that oxygen mask analogy that we always talk about. You have to be able to put your oxygen mask on first before you can put your child's oxygen mask on. And it's really hard to pour from an empty cup as well. 2 analogies, I guess.
So great.
So
great.
Making sure that you are trying to meet your needs and keep your nervous system regulated before helping your child is like, whew. It's hard.
It is hard. Yeah. And maybe we'll just keep going with that on some tips for the parent who submitted this question. Check out those 2 books. They're great resources. See if you can, take a look at your moro reflex to see if that's having an impact on you. Another one would be to go outside on a daily basis with your child, because your child will benefit from this as well. But maybe by yourself. Like if you could, carve out 15 to 20 minutes a day for you to just go outside and go on a walk to the park. If you have like some nearby hiking trails that you could go on without headphones, so you're listening to just the sounds around you, unless the sounds around you are too overstimulating and you need something to listen to feel calm, that's fine too. But I think having that time to go outside possibly by yourself would be really helpful.
Even if you don't have a ton of time to go on a walk or whatnot, just going outside, if you drink coffee in the morning, make yourself a cup of coffee, go outside barefoot if the weather's permitting, and put your feet in the earth and the grass and the dirt, and just like connect with nature first. And like, if meditating is right for you, it's not for me. Jessica does a better job of journaling.
Journaling, yes.
Meditate like that self-improvement.
Please don't tell people I meditate, because that's not true. I have tried in the past. It's hard.
I've tried too, and it's definitely
very hard.
That's probably a sign that we should be doing it. But if that's up your alley, if that's something that could be beneficial for you, I would definitely try that. But getting outside, getting a workout in if possible. I cannot tell you the amount of dysregulation that I am in, especially at the end of the day, if I do not work out. Proprioceptive input is so grounding to our highly sensitive nervous system. So lifting weights, doing yoga, crawling. If you could just crawl several times a day, that will probably make a big difference as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're kind of giving you some suggestions that are not necessarily specific, like sensory based strategies, but more just like life strategies, holistic. We're just like trying to look at all these different pieces.
There's a lot of layers to this.
Because the next one is to make sure that you're drinking enough water, so you're staying hydrated. Because if you are dehydrated, your body actually goes into a state of fight or flight. So making sure you're hydrated, and then focusing on the types of food that you eat, not just focusing on whole foods, because that is important, but also focusing on protein. If you've listened to us for a while, you know that I also listen to like health and fitness podcast, and they talk a lot about how most people are under eating protein, and it actually does have an effect on your nervous system. So look into that. Make sure you're eating whole nutritious foods. Make sure you're eating enough protein to get through the day, and make sure you're staying hydrated.
I was just laughing to myself because you're like, I listen to this health and fitness podcast and protein. And I'm like, and I listen to Call Her Daddy.
There's 2 types of people in this room.
It's fine. No, but really, I actually did take this course on ADHD, and we actually had Dr. Noel on our podcast. He's the one who was talking about this, but especially with neurodivergence, getting enough protein, lowering sugar, those types of things, electrolytes with water, even maybe for your child, adding a little bit of electrolytes into their routine could be helpful. Yeah, those biological needs, filtered water, filtered air if possible, little changes like that could go a long way just from looking at this from a holistic perspective, because that's important. We can't just say, okay, do these sensory activities and you'll probably feel better. It's like, well, let's look at the whole picture. Also, how is sleep?
Yes, that's sleep was the next one. Was looking at your sleep routine, How much sleep are you getting? Your child's 5 years old. Is he sleeping through the night? Is his sleep impacting your sleep? Taking a look at the whole family sleep routine to see what you can change, what you can add, what you can take away to help everyone get better sleep.
Yeah, and then also looking at screen time, how much screen time is happening every day. This could be something that you could slowly start to remove if you're noticing that, wow, yeah, we are on the screens. We're all on the screens a lot. Like, this is something I have to focus on too. It's like I'm working all day, and then I'm doing social media, and then I'm watching a show, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of screen time going on today. And, maybe just taking a journal of, 3 days and seeing how much screen time is happening. And maybe that's an area that could be beneficial to look into as well.
Yep. And then the last one here for the parent who submitted this question is to try building a connection with, I say try building, you probably already have a connection with your child. But what I mean here is, finding the things about your child that you really like about them. We know you love your child, but what do you like about your child? Do you like how funny he is and how he makes these little jokes? Do you like how creative he is when he's building with his Legos? Do you like how kind he is when he gives you a hug? Find those things that he does that you like about him and use that to build a new connection with him, because then you're going to be able to empathize with him better when he is having those hard moments. Really quickly, we want to let you know about our Black Friday Cyber Monday sale that starts on November 18th and ends on December 2nd. During the sale, you will save 20% on physical sensory products like the compression swing, the weighted blanket, the body sock, and you can also save 25% on any of our digital courses where you can learn about primitive reflexes, sensory diets, and more. Head to the description below, click on the link, and start shopping.
Yeah, and spending time getting down on the floor and playing with him what he's interested in. I'm assuming this is a boy. I can't remember if they talked about son or daughter, but talking about what they're interested in, asking them questions like, well, tell me about this Lego creation. What did you build? Get down on the floor and just spend time. A child's currency is time. They just want time with you. The first thing my son wakes up and says is, hey, will you play with me? And I'm like, yes, I want to, but also like, we have to get out the door at some point too. And they want that and they crave that. So like setting your timer, putting your phone away, and just really being focused on that one-on-one time if possible.
And focusing on what he wants to do, not necessarily you trying to direct the activity, but following his lead on what he wants to do and you not changing it in any way.
Yes. And this will be different. This will be a different time spent together than the next strategies that we're going to give you of like sensory diets and activities and things like that. So this is going to be its own time where you're going to connect with them and play with them and do what they want and say, you want to play, good guy, bad guy, cowboy, and what's the, cowboy rodeo, or I don't know. Isn't that like the old Western, like
Cops and Robbers?
Cops and Robbers, but like cowboy and what's the other one?
Oh, Indian.
Yes, there we go. I don't know. If they want to play some game, then you just follow along and you're into it.
Next, let's talk about some strategies for your child specifically. And we're going to start by talking about how to set him up for success before going into these overstimulating situations. And the question I like to ask is, how long does he typically last before he becomes overstimulated? Do you notice that he's able to engage in the activity or whatever you guys are doing out in public for 20 minutes before he gets overstimulated and loses his marbles? So if it's like 20 minutes, then plan to leave 10 minutes before. Right? These are just general numbers. You can modify them as needed because it is a lot of trial and error to figure out how it works and what's going to work best. But plan to stay or be out there for like 10 minutes less than you normally would in order to like proactively prevent him from becoming overstimulated. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah. And I just feel like proactively helping him meet those sensory needs and like little changes like if you're going to the grocery store and he gets overstimulated at the grocery store, jump into the grocery store, have him help push the cart, give him the opportunities to get some more input rather than sitting in the cart, or maybe he likes to be on a screen in the grocery store. Maybe instead of those, try to proactively meet his sensory needs before you go to these activities. I'm thinking of like birthday parties.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you don't go to birthday parties like every weekend, but that to me is like what I'm envisioning happening, where, all the kids are running around and it's chaos. Like, I'm mostly overstimulated at kids' birthday parties.
They're very overstimulating.
Yeah. So maybe having like a safe place set up, maybe having an on-the-go sensory kit in your car, maybe have a designated space when you get to a location, like, all right, we're at our friend's house for a play date. Now if you are feeling uncomfortable, if I see you feeling uncomfortable, let's, go up to this room and we'll take a break together, and just like almost having like an escape route planned, or giving him the opportunity to use a code word to maybe, if he can start to get to that point of dysregulation and he's aware of it, you can teach him how to identify that, giving him a safe word or a cue to say, well, I'm out. I'm going downhill real quick.
Well, and I think in the question too, she talked about how, like, if she tries to help him during the overstimulation or try to remove it, it makes it worse.
That's why I want it to be him. I want him to be him.
Yep.
To say, I'm feeling uncomfortable, or, like a D for dysregulation, I don't know.
And he's 5, so it would be like,
I don't know what his level is.
No, I know. It would be like you guys practicing it on the weekends, talking about it, practicing it, having some simple words to identify those feelings that he has.
Yeah.
Maybe he starts to feel nervous. Maybe he starts to feel too silly, whatever verbiage you guys want to use, and talk about it in a way of like, when we're here, my body starts to feel like this and I don't like it. It's uncomfortable. So here I can come tell you.
Or even I was thinking a social story, right? Maybe something like chewing gum could be helpful, or a sensory story, not necessarily a social story, but when I go out or when I'm feeling this way, I can ask Mom for some chewing gum. I can chew it to help me feel calmer. I can go to a quiet space, and just practicing those skills could be helpful too. It's difficult not knowing the child's exact level, but practicing that when he is calm and regulated is going to be the key here. Not just throwing him in with the sharks and saying, good luck, let me know how that social story is working for you.
The other thing that I found helpful too is like having that plan in place and talking to him about it. So as you guys are driving to, say, the grocery store, and you can talk about, okay, we're going to the grocery store. Here's our list. And maybe he can be in charge of the grocery list, even if he's not reading yet. That's okay. And you know that normally in the grocery store, he starts to get overstimulated within 10 minutes of being there. So you're like, all right, today we're going to go to the grocery store for 2 things. It's going to take us 5 minutes. And he's going to help. He's going to cross it off the list. And we're going to be in and out before he even becomes overstimulated.
I like that.
I really think that that's going to be huge, because right now I also feel like his brain and his body know that he's going to get overstimulated in these situations, right?
It's probably causing anxiety for him.
It causes more anxiety when you're going there. So we need to set him up for success in a way that he has a positive experience versus going there and it being negative because he's overstimulated. So it's like, I mean, maybe you only go to the grocery store for one thing. Maybe you don't even need to go to the grocery store, but you're like, we need to set him up for success. So you're going to be like, we need to go get a pack of gum. Let's go to the grocery store and get a pack of gum.
Yeah.
And you're in, you're out, and it's a successful trip. And it's almost like rewiring his nervous system to have a positive experience instead of a negative one.
Love that. Yeah.
So
great.
In addition to using sensory strategies like before, during, after, I think the other one was to have a plan for decompressing when you guys get home. What are you going to do when you get home that he can do to decompress his nervous system?
I'm also thinking adding sensory diet activities throughout the day. So you wake up, you do some sensory activities before lunch, you do some sensory activities after school, you do some sensory activities before bed. It's just like this constant input that he's receiving to help his nervous system stay regulated, so that way he's not completely falling apart in these different situations.
Yep.
So hopefully that gives you maybe some new ideas. I know we didn't really talk about the loud noises and, he's losing his marbles and getting really loud to kind of overcompensate for his body being out of control. But we both really think that if you can address this from a proactive state rather than a reactive state, that could be the trick. So try some of these strategies. Look at the moro reflex integration. Let us know if these are beneficial, or let us know if you have a child who is similar in this and they kind of drown out the world with their own noise in order to feel more comfortable. Let us know.
Yeah. If you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you like this video, leave us a comment, make sure you subscribe to the All Things Sensory YouTube channel. We have our new YouTube channel, so we're just making sure people know that that's where you need to go to get new podcast episodes.
Yeah, and take a screenshot while you're listening as well, and tag us on social media at All Things Sensory Podcast. Let us know if these episodes are helpful for you. That's what we love to do. We love to talk about this stuff, and we love that you like to listen, and hope they're helpful for you.
Hope it's helpful.
Okay, with that, we'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening to All Things Sensory by Harkla.
If you want more information on anything mentioned in the show, head over to harkla.co/podcast to get the show notes.
If you have any follow-up questions, the best place to ask those is in the comments on the show notes, or message us on our Instagram account, which is at harkla_family or at All Things Sensory Podcast. If you just search Harkla, you'll find us there.
Like we mentioned before, our podcast listeners get 10% off their first order at Harkla. Whether it's for one of our digital courses or one of our sensory swings, the discount code SENSORY will get you 10% off. That's SENSORY.
Head to harkla.co/sensory to use that discount code right now.
We are so excited to work together to help create confident kids all over the world. While we make every effort to share correct information, we're still learning.
We will double check all of our facts, but realize that medicine is a constantly changing science and art.
One doctor or therapist may have a different way of doing things from another.
We are simply presenting our views and opinions on how to address common sensory challenges, health-related difficulties, and what we have found to be beneficial that will be as evidence-based as possible.
By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or your child.
Consult your child's pediatrician or therapist for any medical issues that he or she may be having.
This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the podcast.
Thanks so much for listening.